what we could do is I would ask just a couple questions, and I want to open it up to all of you, and so we can have a larger dialogue. This is a little bit like deja vu, because we did this last year at John Jay, but it was 90 minutes of the two of us, so we won't do that this time around. So Guillermo, I think I want to ask you to let's just stay focused on these two plays. We can go other places if we want. But maybe you could start off by telling us a bit about the genesis. You mentioned it, you described them as site-specific plays. You also said that you wrote them right after Bachele's presidency ended. But could you say a little bit about why these two plays together?
I was really offended by the treatment a lot of people in my country gave to our first female president. They not only offended her as a woman, but also they tried to attack her body. And that was really striking for me, because they had already tortured her body when she was 20 years old. And now they were accusing her of being fat. So that's...
and tortured her body in Villa.
In the actual Villa Grimaldi. So even though I'm not a supporter of her or her policies, I thought I needed to say something about it. So I decided to write the second play, Discurso. But soon enough, I realized that I needed to give the play a context. So I decided to write Villa. And of course, I grew up really close to this torture camp. And I really wanted to say something about it, because it's really it's a very conflicting place, because it's as we discussed in the play, in spring and summer, it's just a beautiful park, and it doesn't really sort of tell the story of the horrors of what that happened there. So I needed to write that play to give context to the second one. Yeah, and we presented the play in the actual villa outdoors, but it was and also in two different torture centers in Santiago, because we have plenty of those that now are becoming like memory places, museums. So in a really simple setup, pretty much what you saw here today, which is a table and a couple of chairs. So you saw something which is really similar to the actual production.
And something else on the table.
Oh yes, an architectural model of the actual villa.
As it would have been reconstructed.
Exactly, the old house.
Yeah, and that's there. And there's actually another architectural model in the villa today.
Yes, exactly.
So we have layers upon layers here. You said that it's a site-specific piece, but it's been performed in other sites.
Yes.
And I was curious in terms of here, this isn't necessarily the right or the intended site for the play.
Yes.
How has it traveled?
It's interesting.
You have done it in Zagreb, right? And a few other places.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because when some people, when they went to see the play to the actual concentration camps, some of them it was the first time visiting these places. So we had an intermission between the two plays, in which people could walk around and see the place, the actual place that we were discussing for the first time. And that was really striking, of course, and really emotional. And it was really powerful, but the sort of intellectual argument got sort of diluted in the emotional reaction. So I do like it when we do it in theaters, because the emotional reaction is a little bit detached, and people can concentrate more in the sort of actual intellectual argument. There's also something that happens with laughter.
Yeah.
In those places, it's really hard to laugh, and here it's easier. And it's something that is really important for the play, because in the play we try to create this, we try to trick the audience into laughing. And towards the end of the play, we say pretty much, this is no laughing matter. So that's, you're supposed to be ashamed of that. But again, I think it works a little bit here, but it really works when you are in those places. Yeah.
You've also done it in the theater next door to the Museum of Memory.
Yes.
in Santiago, which is actually where I saw it. And I afterwards, I just thought this should be required viewing after anyone goes to the museum because of the debate structure and the deliberations over what are the options. Is there only one option that we should choose or can choose?
Yeah.
I think it's interesting in terms of how you stage it with the 3 Alejandras
Yes.
and 3 Michelles.
Yes.
Could you say a little bit about Alejandra? I know you get asked this question a lot, but
Yeah, and
I'm asking it again.
yes, it's Alejandra is short for the Flaca Alejandra, which is the most famous, I guess, tortured person coming out of the villa. She was a woman and she was part of the radical left, but she was tortured so much that she changed sides and she ended up working for the political police. But she was tortured in such a way, it was so traumatizing that, of course, she named a name or two, or maybe many names, as so many people under torture actually did. But the torturers have such a way of working with the tortured people. So they said, basically, now that you gave us the name of your political partner, we killed him. So now everyone wants to kill you. So now you don't have friends. But guess what? Guess what? Now we are your friends. And we're going to protect you. So psychologically, especially if you are under the trauma of torture, you can think that it's better for you to side with the torturers. And not only that, she became a romantic partner of the main torturer, and she worked for a long time for the political police. So she became a pariah, but also she became a problematic figure because some people later looked at her with more compassion, not only as a traitor, but also as a true victim of the trauma of torture. So I wanted for them to be the trauma themselves because they are actually daughters of that sort of impossible conundrum of being the daughter of the victim and of the torturer. So I wanted for them to embody that. And also, they are stuck in the past and they are not using their real names as most political people didn't use their own names in order to protect themselves from the political police. So.
And so they are, in a sense, the daughters of Michelle.
Exactly.
Great. I have one more question, but I want to open it up to you. Questions, comments?
So you thought about the villa quite a bit.
Yes.
While you were crafting it, or subsequently, have you ever figured out what you think is the right solution to what should have or what should happen there?
Yes, I think I side with
Alejandra.
yes. Okay.
Sorry.
No, that was the best answer. I'm going to give you the second best answer, which is that I side with what the survivors were able to do, in a very erratic way, in a very sentimental way, maybe. In a very wrong way.
How it is now, you say.
How it is now. A weird park with flowers in spring, erratic as it is. I like it better because it shows the conflict of history. Though I not agree with myself completely. I also want for the place to be completely demolished. And I'm opposed to the museum though. Because we do have the museum, as we mentioned in the play. Beautiful place.
White.
What?
White.
White, yes. But only maybe 7% of all the cases of torture and human rights violations have gone through due process of justice in Chile. So to have a big symbol of this is the past without having truth and justice is very ironic and actually almost offensive. So.
Well, I was also wondering, I mean, now that Bachelet's been re-elected, which I was trying to tonight listen to the two plays with that in my mind, and I was wondering, has Has her reelection changed either or both of the plays for you?
Yes, I don't. Yes, I wouldn't want to perform the speech again in the context of Chile, because now she was speaking from a very embittered place after leaving office, but now she's back in office. She's so popular, and now the country has changed a lot, because she's the people are really sort of actively fighting for their rights, and they really want to demolish the last remnants of the dictatorship. So it's a different president in a different country. So things have changed. I should rewrite it.
Okay.
Yes.
And what would it be if you rewrote it?
I think it would be a sort of the problem of being of sort of not leading your country, but just walking behind the leadership of the masses of your country who want the real change. I wonder if I'll do it ever, but
Would it take the form of a speech? Do you still envision it as a
yes,
speech?
yes, I like speeches.
I mean, these two plays are so interesting because one's a debate and the other's a speech, and I think that's such interesting choices for two theatrical
Yeah.
moments.
I like speeches because political speeches are the definition of dishonesty, which is, it can be also the definition of theater.
Yeah.
So I like to play with that problem of honesty and dishonesty in theater. Maybe you don't see it really graphically here, but in performance, I tell you it works.
Yeah, yeah.
I hope.
And it's interesting too, because I think, yeah, okay, yes, I see hands.
One of the issues I was thinking about in this play was who's in charge of actually making monuments in remembrance for genocide and things of that nature. And I know Manhattan with the World Trade Center, there was a whole debate about the memorial and what's appropriate. Do you think that it's something that, I mean, maybe it sounds elitist, but it should be taken out of the average person's hands and maybe given to an artist? Like the Vietnam Memorial, which was very controversial when it came out, because people were like, why is there this big black block here with names on it? How offensive. Because they wanted something representational and kitsch, possibly. And they were giving them something with a little bit of distance that then people could pour themselves into. But let's say the average person wouldn't select something that's a little bit distant. That's something that an artist or someone who's removed from it would do in order to give people another perspective to grieve or to process memory. Do you think that maybe that's something that maybe plays like this and people who design the World Trade Center and people who design the Villa should be in charge of, as opposed to the average person?
That's interesting. I think big institutions will almost always fail. And I say almost always because I think that the Vietnam War Memorial and the mall in Washington, I think that worked really well. Just because of the simplicity of putting the names.
Yeah, but it was a debate how it got.
Yeah, but I think, but I think for me, when I remember 9/11, I think nothing for me beats as a memory, sort of emotional, effective image, is in the couple of weeks after the actual event, the attack, the pictures of family members just sticking on the walls and everywhere, and I think that's for me the most striking and sort of a lasting memorial. Now it's not there, but we can still see the pictures. But that was so intimate, so personal, so popular. So I mean, out of the people, so natural. I think if I were in charge, I would just get all those photos and just put them in a big wall down there instead of building sort of big monuments that maybe don't say much because they are so big that they lose intimacy. I don't know. That's my opinion.
Yes.
The dialogue that you created with this conundrum debate that never gets resolved, did that stem from public debate that was happening in Chile? It was in newspapers or?
Not so much, because the debate happens mostly in academic circles, all within these organizations. So one of the ideas of the place was actually to popularize a problem that is kind of obscure. Yeah.
Yes.
What's next for the,
What's next for?
yeah, what, the
What-
production,
what this
the
play?
future, but,
Of this play?
yeah.
I don't know. We have toured for many years now. I don't know, in more than 20 countries, and we are still presenting it here and there. And I think in this November, I think we're going to Greece, which is interesting because they also have a really like rough history of dictatorship and torture. So it's still alive, still going.
Yes.
I was just wondering if there is ever a sort of struggle with potential contradiction that the piece gives a subject to an audience with a view to potentially popularising it, as you were saying, which is exactly what the piece also criticises doing. Do you see what I mean? That
Not
thing-
really. Could you go?
So-
Yeah.
Some of the sort of critical swung in the piece is the idea that the villa is making it, not entertainment is the wrong word, but is making a performance, is making it a performative experience of a truth, and that should be criticised. I completely agree. But then to make theatre is the same process in some ways. So
Yes.
it's difficult. I mean, as a piece of oppositional theatre, absolutely it's opposing the thing, but in its being theatre and people watching it and people potentially finding the most involving moments in a piece of theatre, the same sensational moments that might make them most involved in the notions of the villa. It kind of is a...
Yes, I think you're totally right, and I think the one way in which I found it to protect the play from that was to address the problem of laughter. Because theater occupies a complicated space in between art and entertainment. It might be art, but it's distributed to the world as entertainment. And it's a problem for this play, because you are seeing this horrible story in order to be entertained. But it's a history of theater too, it's a history of tragedy. But in this case, it's so personal and current that it might be even more complicated. And as I said before, this play represented in these places. The only way out I was able to create was to actually address the problem by having one character say, "This is not a laughing matter. We should never laugh about this." But people are laughing and being entertained at the same time. So instead of not doing the play at all, we just present the problem explicitly, and we present the conundrum and the paradox. That's the only way out. Otherwise, we wouldn't do theater at all. So we usually do that trick.
Do you find that the nature of that laughter changes? And I know playwrights have put up the show with the intention that the laughter feels hypocritical, and it becomes like entertainment, that the audience actually conditions whether it's an oppositional laugh or whether it is actually meant to be.
Yes, it changes a lot, of course, because in this context, the laughter comes out of the witticisms, if there are any, or the quirkiness of the characters, and also the paradoxes. So it's more, in this context, it's more of a sort of a conventional way of approaching the problem of laughter in theater. But in those concentration camps, it's you laugh out of sort of a finding a release from the tension. So people don't laugh so much in those sort of quirky moments. They laugh more in the moments in which things are said are just too harsh. For example, they rape them with dogs. You can hear one or two laughters, but you definitely feel that it's a release, people don't judge each other by laughing at those moments. It's really interesting. It's really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just curious about when you stage it, on tour, do you stage it mostly in theaters, or do you actually go to sites? Like, for example, if you did it in Buenos Aires, would you go to Guadalajara or?
Mostly in theaters, and in a couple of countries they have been able to arrange for us as well. Most countries have former concentration camps. In a couple of places, especially Argentina, they have been able to sort of accommodate real places for us. In Argentina, we couldn't do it in the actual concentration camps because they have a policy of not charging for tickets, and the festival needed to charge. So we actually did it in a place called the Parque de la Memoria, Memorial Park, which is basically the modern art museum, which works really well for the play in a more paradoxical. So I really wait.
Is there anywhere in the U.S. that you think you'd want to stage it in particular that you know
of? Not really, not that I know of. Because it's really hard to find a place in the U.S. unless you go outside the U.S.
Or the
A couple of secret, Guantanamo, and there I hear there are a lot of secret places somewhere in Europe, and they are still, but they are in use right now. So
It's one of the former slave plantation.
former slave plantation, or maybe Japanese internment camps through the war.
of? Or even just a prison.
Yeah. I mean, if you look here, you'll find.
Yes,
I have a question. I'm from Chile, and Chile is a very polarized society
Yes.
still now. And I would like to know how was the reception of the play, and if you traveled with the play, what was the audience that saw this play? Because it's a very, very powerful play, so I'm interested about that.
It's the people who came to see the play in the concentration camps were really grateful, and they were, because there was a sense of community, because the play was done in such places, because it was sort of forbidden for anyone on the right to come to these places, because those are no one on the right, political right, would dare go to those places. So it was really well received because it created a sense of community. It was a place, quote unquote, for us, in order to get together and think about our problems. Sort of a secular church kind of experience. So in that way, it was really well received. We did receive a couple of criticisms from the far right, especially editorialists in the right-wing newspapers, who said basically it's not confirmed that Bachelet was tortured. That's a lie, and what's up with all these communists are complaining about the torture yet again? I mean, they have the museum already, same arguments. So it was very polarizing, but it was supposed to be polarizing, and it's still polarizing.
did you tour in Chile? Did you play other cities?
Not so much, because it's really easy to perform within the cities or the big cities, but small cities they don't like to bring work that is too conflicting or political. There's kind of a self-censorship going on in the country still.
Yes.
I just want to know, how do you deal with audiences' desensitization to violence and sort of genocide in the 21st century? How do you approach that as an artist to get people to, feel again, or what techniques did you use as you were writing this process and as you stage it to get people to have that reaction that a lot of people and I had, which is, it was funny in places, but at the same time, the humor of it and the techniques, splitting the Alejandro has made it deeper for me somehow. What was your process?
Well, that's actually a big problem, because if you read the Truth and Reconciliation report, is full of horror, but people don't necessarily read it. So when doing this play, I knew that we had to sort of reach the limit of what you can say in theater. So we used the true testimony of the real fact of the military training dogs to rape women, which is completely shocking and unthinkable. But it happened, it's a real story. So it was a problem, should we use it or not? Because it might sound gimmicky, or that we're using it just for the effect. And it's also it's so horrible that it's almost taboo. So you always have to sort of think about how far do you want to go without sort of shocking for the sake of the shock, or to create just a superficial effect. So for us it was a big discussion. But I think, to answer your question, I think we needed a quota of shock, of sheer shock. Because sometimes these problems become too rational, and with the years it's easy to justify them rationally, especially when you think about political context and the course of history and the Cold War, whatever. It's really easy to rationalize. But when you speak about them in such clear terms, so shocking terms, something happens emotionally that appeals to your to the core of your human sense of being, that you start thinking differently. So I think we were aiming for that. That's the reason why we go into that world of the taboo of naming such a thing. Especially because, this is more personal, when the Truth and the Reconciliation came out, people...
The Reddit Commission?
Yes. Oh, we had two reports, one about the deaths and the second about the torture. People around me, people who don't necessarily share my political views, said they were really touched by the raping with dogs, and they were shocked. And it's so interesting because now I recently wrote a play about Syria, and the Syrians were so offended by the fact that people in the world reacted to the use of chemical weapons. They said to me actually, okay, so Assad killed 140,000 people, but you only react when you hear about the chemical weapons? So what does it say about us? Is it that we tolerate death, but we have a threshold, and that threshold means sort of reaching a higher level of inhumanity, so to speak? So I think something similar happens here. So I really wanted to address the fact that people just don't react to the facts of numbers. They don't react to 140,000 people killed in Syria in the last 2 years. They react only to little kids choking. So, yeah.
I think we should probably wrap this up. Did you have a final question?
I wanted to ask, so often we talk about preaching to the choir, and you were saying that the people on the right did not come to see the play in Chile. But when you tour, if it's in another country, do you think the distance would give you an audience that could be perhaps broader?
Yes, of course. People internationally don't necessarily agree with my political views, and it's broader and it's always more interesting. But I usually, when I travel, I try to be very open about my political views, and I try to sort of okay, I'll tell you this. When we took the play to London, a couple of Chilean diplomats came to see the performance, and they were really offended because they said, I'm sorry, this is not the image we're selling to the world. So, and in the talkback, I said horrible things about my country. horrible things because I was sort of really reacting to to what they wanted me to say. It's a beautiful country, we live in peace and we prosper. I wanted to say there's no justice, we hate each other, I hate the country, I hate the armed forces, I will never forgive them, and I actually want to live away. There's no truth, there's no reconciliation, I hate it. And I think that's part of the story. And so going back to your question, that would never happen in our small, when I preach to the choir. It happens only when the play is open to different point of views. It becomes more of a conflict, and that's also very rewarding and it's interesting. So I love this. I love this opportunity, touring and being part of this festival too.
I think on that note, we will end. I want to thank Guillermo Calderón.
Going to go around the corner on 36th Street between 5th Avenue and Madison. On the right side is the bar called Archive.